you know, always ended here somehow. We always ended up in this little space.
Yeah.
So I think that was a very safe place for people like the characters of Whitey and Pete in the play. And to the as far as the church, it's right across the street, the theater and the bar.
Yeah.
Right across the street from Sacred Heart Church. And I have the pastor, or one of the priests who comes over, and he's one of the regulars in the bar. And you get to see that what he went through.
Mm-hmm.
Where basically in the second act, after everybody's laid off and he's just heard his 18th confession from another wife who just can't handle it anymore because their husband's drunk. They have no money. They have to pull the kids out of Catholic school. They have nowhere to turn. And finally, the father, I just named him the father. And by the way, Bill Rahill, a great Philly actor, one of my favorite, played the father many times for me.
He's
Comes
fantastic.
Up, Bill Rahill's just phenomenal talent.
Great person, too.
And he says I should be his agent because I always talk about him. But Billy got up there and did this monologue as the father, talking to a Station of the Cross. And it's the Station of the Cross where Simon is helping Christ carry the cross. And there's a young priest who you have seen come from this, you know, everything's wonderful world, and how dare this priest drink? And of course, Act 2, now he's living with this, and he comes in and talks to Simon. And then at the same station, when the father comes out, then he comes and talks to Christ and says, you know, how can I carry you know, how can I carry this cross?
Yeah.
I've told these people everything to do, and it's all wrong. It's everything I have said is doing nothing to help these families. What do I tell them?
What a frustrating situation to be in.
What do I tell them?
To be a leader of a community and to see all of this happen and not be able to do anything.
And you're doing everything that you have thought all along was correct.
Yeah.
You've been doing everything that up until this point in 1967 was proper. And everything worked. Isn't this great? Yeah, it'll be fine. Go ahead. You know, your husband will stop. You know, he won't drink so much tonight. It'll be okay. And now you're dealing with life and death situations. About, you know, my husband doesn't come home. He spends all the time at the bar because he can't come home. He's not coming home because he can't face you.
Right.
He's ashamed. He has no education. He can't go out and get a job. He can't support your family anymore. So it does tie in the element of misplaced faith because you know, these guys are all having the faith in the job.
Yeah.
Well, quit school at 15, be an apprentice. It's what I did.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I have my home. Your grandfather had his home.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, your grandfather has this bar, and he's also being a father in a way to these people.
Yeah.
You know,
he is, you know, the one in there listening to all of their stories. Like a confessor. And it's very, very much, and he gets, you know, what's my favorite quote of his? One of the guys asks him what he thinks heaven is, because they're talking about heaven and all this craziness. And to him, heaven would be, when he grew up in Russia. I remember this one thing my grandfather used to tell me. When he was a little kid in Russia, that they would have sunflower fields that would be 6, 7 foot high. And at the time, my grandfather was like maybe, you know, 2 foot high or 3 foot high, whatever. And they would run through these sunflower fields with the sunflowers just over top of them. And that would be his summers in Russia. But in winter, when the ice would be so thick pouring off the onion tops, it would come down in like these huge icicles.
Yeah.
And that these kids would try to climb them up, but just keep sliding back down because they could never get up. And my grandfather would say that heaven to me would be summer and winter at the same time. That's heaven to me. But then after I wrote this story about the icicles, I realized that these guys in Camden, that's them.
Yeah.
They can
Sliding
climb up.
down.
They keep climbing up, but keep sliding back. Keep climbing them, sliding back. So that one story ended up telling so many more stories in the play.
So many people can relate to that too.
I think so.
Family members, you know, that have gone through that. I mean, especially if you have family that you know had a working class background. I mean, I know mine did. You know, and you know, having to battle all of that at certain times in history. That you know, how do you get out of it? How do you pull yourself out of what seems to be a hopeless situation? Like you said, misplaced faith. I mean, misplacing your faith in your job or in the church or wherever it is. You know, I need answers. This is where I'm going to get my answers. And
and now
you know,
who's there to give you? Who's there to give you the answers now?
Yeah.
When all the answers are going away, when the jobs are gone, and your neighborhood's changing, and now, if you could have in '67, these houses probably were valued at, I don't know, they're probably not a lot, probably in the 20s back then.
Right.
And that's only because, the old money in 1967, but they were depreciating probably $1,000 a year until they got out of there. So now they couldn't even, they were all going out underwater.
Yeah.
So who are you going to sell your house? Who's going to buy that house from you?
Right.
So you're even trapped. You're trapped. You're trapped in that bar. You're trapped in that house. Yeah. You're trapped in this life. And a lot of those poor guys, including the one guy one guy from the bar who I actually based the character on of Whitey. And he died in his late 40s. He died of, alcohol related, because these guys there was not much left once the jobs were gone.
Right.
They lost all their self-esteem and they became ashamed.
Yeah. It's very sad. But you guys are part of revitalizing Camden. Yeah. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's a pretty amazing thing that you guys are doing.
Got a lot of doubt. Had a lot of people say a lot of crazy things to me.
And people, I would imagine people will say, well, why Camden? Why would you do that? And to me, it would be like, well, why not?
Well, we as artists are always driven to the place where we get the space and where we can work.
Right.
But in this, there was an extra incentive for me to be there.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about South Camden Theatre. I know we're jumping ahead in terms of time, but you guys formed the theater in around 2005, is that correct?
1994.
Oh, 1994.
We were in the basement. I'm sorry.
The theater.
I'm losing myself.
No.
2004.
No, okay.
2004 to 2005 is when we started it. And we started it in the basement of Sacred Heart Church.
Did you?
Which was one of the settings of play LAST RITES.
Yeah.
And it all started when Michael Doyle, who's the very famous priest, a lot of people know who Michael Doyle is from the Camden 28 and his work in Camden over the last 40 years. And I'm coming out of church one Sunday and Michael Doyle says to me, Joe, why don't you ever do your plays in Camden? I said, where? And he went, here. Really? So what we did is we did a staged reading of LAST RITES on the altar of Sacred Heart on a Sunday afternoon. And I said, Michael, there's cursing in this play. There's a lot of cursing.
You're allowed to do this?
It's like, that's the way people talk. That's the way people talk.
Good for
So
him.
we did a staged reading on the altar. We raised, I forget how much money, only about $1,000, but it was a lot. And from that money, over Christmas, we built a stage in the basement of Sacred Heart Church. For a few years, I ran the stage crew at Camden Catholic High School in Cherry Hill, where my son went. And I had 5 or 6 of my guys who were my stage crew, who were all freshmen in college. And ZD and Beer does wonders in getting things built. And in 2 days, we built a stage.
Wow.
And we started doing shows that spring.
That's fast.
And the first play was LAST RITES, where we had our infamous light strip light system, where we had, what are they called? The power strips?
Yeah.
So we would have one power strip with a number 1 on it, and we knew to hit that for the first scene. We had another power strip with lights plugged in, and that was the second scene. This is how we started.
Yeah.
But we did this play about Camden in the basement, in the neighborhood where it happened. And I think we had in 9 shows, I think over 500 people saw it.
Wow.
And they came and walked out and were really moved and stunned.
Sure.
And it was really neat. A group of students from LaSalle came on a bus.
Yeah.
And as they were leaving, and I was talking to them because I was really friendly with one of the students, and as we were leaving, the one student looked over to me and he goes, you really should write a sequel to this. And his friend said, you're in it. And then I realized, wow, this play really just hit a chord.
Yeah, resonated.
It resonated because it was so real. There's no sugarcoating in any of my plays.
Yeah.
It's real. And this was a very hard play to watch. What I found for a lot of college students at that time is that they had, in 2005 this was, and still to this day, when I get college students or high school students to come to the theater, they've only seen musicals. They don't understand that this kind of theater even exists.
No.
And then it pulls them into this world.
Yeah.
So we started there. We ran there for about, we were there 5 years. About the second year, more than before the second year, across the street from the church was my grandfather's bar, which was boarded up and falling down for 20 years. When he died, my grandmother sold it. 2 owners passed. The guy died, owned all sort of tax bills, abandoned the property. The property became abandoned, as bad as anything you would see, with a roof, with a hole in it, with rainwater, boarded up. In the backyard, we constantly found everything from condoms to needles to everything else. And I talked to my friend Helene Pearson, who at the time was the head of Heart of Camden, which has rebuilt 165 at least now homes in that part of Waterfront South. And I said, that building should be, my grandfather's bar should be a theater. And she went, and walked away and got in her car and left. And then I said it to her a second time, about a month or so later, and she laughed. And then as she told when we opened the theater, and she goes, when Joe came to me the third time, then when someone comes to me with that many times, I start to investigate. Mm-hmm. So it turned out that building was abandoned and had tax bills on it, but a new program had just been put through, I think federal level, where federal liens can be taken off of abandoned properties to rehab them if the owner is deceased or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So a councilman from Camden at the time, he's not a councilman anymore, Mike McGuire, who's tied to that neighborhood, called and said, yours is the first thing we're getting taken off, and we're going to get the tax lien taken off. So we got the tax lien taken off. We finally get the building. We had the big day that we finally are allowed in the property. And I'm going and waiting to see my grandfather's bar. And we got in there, and it was gone. The bar was stolen. This entire bar, the size maybe, I don't know, 16 feet. Like a bar, it's probably right now in Northern Liberties in a very nice bar.
Right.
Because it was built in like 1901. They had stolen the entire bar. So all there were big holes in the floor that I almost fell into one. When if I would have fallen, Michael grabbed me.
Yeah.
Good to hang with priests. Michael grabbed me, or I would have gone into about 9 feet of black water full with everything that was into the basement because I didn't see the hole in the floor.
Yeah.
So now we've got the building.
Yeah.
Now Heart of Camden has money to tear down the building. They have an architect who donated a lot of his services and designed.
Right.
He came up to me, Kirsten, every theater person's dream. He comes up to me, he goes, Joe, we're building you a theater. What do you want? I'm like, what?
That had to be so emotional for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting, ugh.
So I said, based on all of my work off in those little tiny spots in New York, I did everything that I did not have there. So I said, I want fly space.
Yeah.
So we have, in a 96-seat theater, we have 3 stories of fly space. We have a huge green room. We have a huge dressing room. We have a bathroom attached to the dressing room. We have all of this stuff that I never had in any of the places that I had been working. So back to this. So now we start building. When we've tore it down, one day I get a phone call from Sacred Heart Church, and it's Michael's secretary. And she goes, Joe, you need to be here. Thursday night at 5 o'clock, you need to be here. I'm like, why? You can't tell anybody, but Martin Sheen's coming. I'm like, what? Martin Sheen's friends of Michael's.
Oh, really?
So I get there, and all of a sudden there's Martin Sheen standing on Jasper Street looking into the hole where the future theater is going to be. And Martin ended up going with us down through the hole into where the basement was. And Martin did the very first monologue in the corner of 4th and Jasper.
Did he?
Yeah.
That's
really
a
cool.
Great story.
So there's Martin Sheen down there just raving with this monologue. Oh, it's fantastic. And so he was our first person there. The building starts to go up, and then the economy crashes. So now we have steel in the ground. The building is an outline. It's just steel studs.
Right.
And it was like that for a good year and a half, where nothing moved because
you just had to stop.
The money dried up. Because Helene had a lot of commitment from the local unions. We're going to give us some services, and really everyone wanted to be a part of this. Mm-hmm. And now, just like LAST RITES, the economy crashes and they can't help because they have to go out and find jobs for themselves. They don't have that luxury. So it stops for a while, and then a next angel came in, and the next angel is Pepe Paperno. Pepe owned a company at the time called Spars. Mm-hmm. I think he just bought AC Moore.
Oh, okay.
Pepe grew up in this neighborhood and is very much into charitable things and helping Camden and being about this neighborhood. So Pepe ends up fronting $250,000 to pick production back up from his foundation, which is called the Dominica Foundation. Awesome. By the time his generosity was finished and we opened the theater, the Dominica Foundation had given $750,000 to build this theater.
Wow. It's a beautiful space.
Thank you.
It really is.
A second angel had now fallen from the sky.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. And so now this is our 4th season now in the theater. It's a 96-seat space.
Yeah.
Very, it's a black box, but we can make it into many things. We've already done